This is the absolute value unit test, and these are the word problems, application problems. And so we're looking at question number 11 and question number 12. So I'm just going to read through it. The Campbell Soup Company has guidelines for each can of soup that it produces. The guidelines state that the volume of each soup can must not vary from its stated volume of 14.5 fluid ounces by more than 0.08 ounces. What are the maximum and minimum values for the range of acceptable cans? Okay, so it doesn't say write an inequality, absolute value inequality, or an absolute value equality. But it's not asking for the range of values, it's asking for the maximum and the minimum. So I'm looking for two values, not a range of values. That means I have an equality. It's going to be an absolute value. The ideal volume is 14.5. The goal, the ideal volume, what I'm varying from, is going to go here. The actual amount that I have in the can isn't necessarily 14.5. That's the part we're solving for. That's the part that's going to be my maximum and minimum. So that's x. And the difference, which is why I'm always subtracting in here if I have a positive number, the difference is subtraction. And that difference cannot exceed 0.08 ounces. 0.08. So it can be more than 14.5 by that number or less than 14.5 by that number. And now I just solve. Right? Pretty simple absolute value equation. So I've got x minus 14.5 equals 0.08, and I've got x minus 14.5 equals negative 0.08. Set up your two cases. Add 14.5. You're getting to write a little better than that. I'll add the 0 because I'm doing 0.8 plus 14.5 plus 14.5. Okay, so the 14.5 goes, and I've got 14.58 when I add, and when I subtract, I'm taking 0.8 away from 50, so that's got to be 42. 14.42. So this is the maximum amount, and this is the minimum amount. Identify, right? Don't just write somewhere, on your page, x equals 14.58. It asks for the maximum and minimum values. So you have to identify them and say the maximum value is. Does it make sense? Well, I've got to be really close to this number, 14.5, and those numbers are both very close to it. They can't vary by very much. Haha. Number 12, in a chemical process between 77 grams and 85 grams of carbon is added to a mixture. Let C be the amount of carbon that is added. Write an absolute value equation describing the maximum and minimum amount of carbon to be added. Okay, so this is the case where I'm not told the number that I add and subtract. I'm trying to find that out. Okay, so I'm writing an absolute value equation. So I can start off with that. And this. Okay, so they told us to use a C, so if you use an X, use a C. It'll be the amount of carbon. Write an absolute value equation describing the maximum and minimum. Okay, So what I ended up with in this one is that I have 77, okay, is the minimum amount, and 85 is the maximum amount. They're not asking for 77 and 85, right? They're asking for an equation that will give that as the result. So now I'm going to say, all right, well, if 77 is the minimum and 85 is the maximum, then the number that's going to go in here in the equation, that's going to be subtracted from C, goes here. Where there? Exactly halfway between these two numbers. Okay, and so what number is halfway between 77 and 85? Well, on the number line, you can think of it as the midpoint, and you could count, right? So from 77 to 85, that's 8 units. So halfway is 4 units. Add 4 to 77 and you get 81. Add another 4, you get 85. Or take the average. The average of two numbers is the point halfway between them. And 77 to 85 is going to be 150, 162. And when I divide that by 2, I get 61, or excuse me, 81 also. So 81 is going to go in here. How much did I go up and down? I figured that over here on the number line by 4, by the 4, but mathematically I could just say, okay, well, what's the difference between the numbers? And it's got to be half of that. So I'm going to subtract 77 from 85, and I know I'm going to get 8, but it's not, 8 doesn't go here because that's the whole range all the way across. 4 goes there, half of that, because I'm going to add it and subtract it. So probably would be a really, really good idea to solve this and make sure it gives me the right numbers. And so let's just do that really quickly because we're almost done. Okay, so I've got just solving that absolute value equation. I've got C minus 81 equals 4 and C minus 81 equals negative 4. So I'm just going to add 81. Okay, so 81 and 4 is 85, and 81 and negative 4 is 77. I'm in good shape. I think you can do well on this test if you just keep track of some of the little things. Make sure you switch the sign if you divide or multiply by a negative. Make sure you set up two cases. Make sure your answer makes sense. Okay, does this answer make sense? Well, if I go back to what I've done before, I'm starting at 81 and I'm varying 4 in each direction. So if I go back to that original equation, 77 and 85. Okay, so the answer to this question is this absolute value equation. Okay, well, good luck. See you on Monday.